What's up, y'all? It's your girl Brandy back with another video. We are pumping these videos out today. I do not care. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Brandy. I do story times and blah blah blah. Okay. So by the title of this video, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, is you okay? Is you cool? See, y'all, I just started my YouTube channel. I have so many videos and topics and things that I just need to get out, right? And I was gonna skip talking about Dr. Cheyenne Bryant because it was, this is the whole riffraff and thing. The scandal with her came out like maybe a couple months ago. And I wanted to talk about something that was kind of like, happening right now. But she just dropped a video where basically like people are doing like recreations of those documentaries when they're like, telling their story, and it's like sitting down in the chair and the little music. You know what I'm talking about? I can't remember what they're recreating. If it's that documentary, I can't think of what documentary it is, but I hope you guys get the point. So she recreated that and basically tried to come out and say like people are still trying to say that she's not a doctor. She was putting on a doctoral hood and the whole get up when you graduate from doctoral school. And comical. Okay, so let's start in the beginning. Okay, let's start with a couple things. So first, I want to say this. I feel like the way that she's been addressing this has just been she's just been poorly handling this. I think people would probably have a little bit more respect if she comes out and says, hey, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a doctorate. I have an honorary doctorate or even whatever. I have a lot of experience in this field. I am not a doctoral level clinician, but I'm very passionate about, providing life coaching and relationship, advice. I think they would respect her more. So she said a couple things that I do want to address, and I have a personal tie to this because I've dealt with the licensure process. I, for the record, am not a licensed therapist. I started the process in Georgia when I graduated, and then I stopped because I ended up finding a remote job, and I've been having a remote job ever since. Eventually, I do plan on going back and either getting a doctorate degree or getting licensed, but just not right now. Like, I'm just very, very comfortable with my remote work. All right, so let's talk about the first comment that she made that I thought was very interesting about this whole thing was she said that the reason that she chooses private practice is so that she doesn't have to essentially deal with the licensure board. And I don't know if that's exactly what she said, but I know she said something like that. She said basically she doesn't want to have to deal with like the licensure board because they're very strict and things like that. And I just don't understand. You probably have heard this, but in any profession, it doesn't have anything to do with just counseling. In any profession, when you deal with licensure is so that it essentially protects you as the consumer from being harmed. And it also protects, in a sense, even though I feel like it's more so just as a regulatory board to make sure that you're in check, it also does protect you as a counselor as well, so that you can make sure that you're doing the right things by your client. It's a guideline for you as well, so that you make sure that you don't do harm, or that you're not in a situation with a client that you shouldn't be in. So that was a very, very big red flag. And again, if you're a normal person who doesn't have any understanding of licensure and the board, even the mental health field, you probably wouldn't have caught that. So, and it's just very crazy to me that even a woman of her caliber, like, I get when people say they don't necessarily want to, practice anymore because maybe they may be pursuing different social media interests or avenues or business avenues, but to come out and say that they affect the way that you practice because they're kind of like, in a sense, in your business or they're strict is not necessarily the truth. Licensure boards are to protect the consumer from harm, to make sure that you're doing the right thing by them. So yeah, and I would guarantee you, the other thing that people don't seem to understand, because I see a lot of people also saying, well, even if she's not, actually, practicing as a life coach. I mean, she's practicing as a life coach. She's not actually doing therapy. We don't know what she's doing in those sessions. If you're portraying to someone that you have a doctoral level understanding of therapy and mental health and clinic work, a lot of times people are probably going to come to you, even if it's for life coaching. They might come to you because of that additional expertise. Like, the way that she just was portraying herself has just been so just crazy to me. And I honestly do at this point believe that there was something else going on, because I don't think that anybody sane will put in the effort to just continue this lie, which is a bold-faced lie. You don't have a doctoral level education. Nobody can find your dissertation. It doesn't matter what type of doctorate degree you do. If you do one in dance, theater, history, or Crocs, you have to do a dissertation. And I can't remember the exact name of the platform that the dissertations are housed on, but a lot of people also called her out about that as well. Another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was what she said about FAFSA and how essentially they lost her transcripts. She went to Argosy University, and she said that the third party the school ended up shutting down, which is true. And she said the third party that was, I guess, holding the records only held them for 2 years. And so essentially what they did is because they lost her records, they said, hey, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, we'll give you the option. We'll give you your money back, but you won't be able to use your credentials, essentially. Like, all your work is just going to be gone. And she said that she decided not to take that. She decided that she wanted her credentials and that she was just going to basically accept the fact that they messed up and they lost her stuff. But my thing is this, that doesn't make sense. If you've already done the work and you've gotten you can use this credential, no school or financial authority is going to come to you and say, hey, even though we lost your records, we're going to offer you a refund because you technically can't use those you won't be able to use those credentials. That just doesn't make any sense. And again, I could be getting parts of the story wrong, but that's what I remember her saying. She essentially was saying that the school shut down, lost her records, and they offered her a refund. And what school do you know is going to offer anybody a refund for something that they've already learned? That's the part that didn't make sense to me. And again, like I said, there are professionals who get to a certain level and then they don't practice anymore because of social media. I've seen this happen with lawyers. I've seen this happen with specific doctors. Like, let's talk about Dr. Phil for a second. Like, Dr. Phil, people also were trying to bring him up as well, but Dr. Phil is an actual on paper. He was licensed at one point. He actually went to one of my alma mater. He got his doctorate degree in clinical psychology from the University of North Texas. And he actually practiced as a psychologist for a while, meaning he actually went through the process, their 4 or 5 year program. He did a dissertation and he actually was practicing as a psychologist before he got one, in the celebrity world as a famous talk show host. So it happens, but it doesn't happen in the way that she said it. Also, to go back to the whole private practice thing, but the point that I wanted to make for people to understand is you can be a licensed professional in private practice. She said something about doing private practice so that she didn't have to deal with the licensure board, but that doesn't make sense because there are therapists who practice in private practice, their community mental health, hospitals, whatever setting you practice in, you still have to answer to someone if you're going to be providing therapy. And so I just didn't get that. Like, if she would have said, oh, well, I want to hold off on licensure because I want to pursue more entertainment and other business ventures over actually working with clients, I could understand that. But for her to say, oh, I went to private practice because I didn't want to deal with the licensure board, doesn't make sense, because as a therapist, you can still do therapy in private practice and be under a licensure board. So those are kind of my thoughts. I think it's very, very I think it's very disappointing because I didn't get to meet her, but I saw her in person. Very beautiful woman. She came to Dallas when she was in the conversation. She made a lot of awesome points. She's very, very well spoken, very, very beautiful woman. But I think it's very sad that people are choosing to pick and choose in a field that is so very, very important. Again, if she would have came out and said, hey, I'm a life coach, she could have still achieved everything that she achieved without, she could have been life coach Cheyenne Bryant, and it's still, I think she would have been exactly where she was. Her having the doctor and that, doesn't really add anything to it, especially if she was saying that she wasn't even under a licensure board anyway, because that's the only way that you're going to even be able to practice at the doctorate level. If you're under licensure, you can't work with clients, provide therapy without being under some type of license, unless, like she said, you're doing life coaching, which people don't, it can get tricky. If you're with the life coach and you're talking about and you're wanting therapy and they don't refer you out, that life coach is acting out of the scope of what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm not going to get too much into what life coaching is and the difference between therapy, because that's a whole different thing. But again, my point is, she did all this. She was very well respected. And instead of just doubling down instead of just coming and saying, you know what, I've been misrepresenting myself, I don't have a doctorate degree, I'm a life coach, I think people would have much, instead of just doubling down on I am a doctor, when you're not a doctor, you have an honorary doctorate, which that's controversial in itself, y'all. I don't know the issue that people have with honorary doctorates. They don't mean anything outside of just an accolade from the school, just acknowledging the influence that you've had on a specific program or the entity in itself. And most times you can't do anything outside of that institution. Because I looked this up, y'all, because I give a lot of honorary doctorates if you've done activism and you were in the community, or you've given a large amount of money to an institution. They don't mean anything, other than the campus that they're given on, and again, I don't even see people really even if somebody gets an honorary doctorate just saying, hey, doctor, because it's an honorary thing. You're not going to be just walking around saying, yeah, I'm doctor. No. So, but my point was, you have an honorary doctorate, you don't have a real doctorate degree, you have not been able to prove that you have a doctorate or a dissertation. You made a continuous comments about your credentials, about the licensure board, what it's for, about your education being lost. Doesn't happen. And again, another point to that, it wouldn't have, there's even people who have gone to Argosy University have been able to pull the record. So let's try another lie, okay? I think it's very sad when people misrepresent themselves in this field, because there are a lot of people who look up to her. And even me, like I said, she's very well spoken. I saw her in person in Dallas at the conversation. Very beautiful, very well spoken. Could be using, that finesse that she has to really be making changes, but now the world is more focused on the fact that she is lying about her credentials. So Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, yeah, but that's pretty much my thoughts, guys. My takeaway from this would be, just make sure that you're really doing your research on people that you are listening to and you're taking advice from, because I'm not even gonna lie, at this point, I'm not gonna say everything she's ever said has been invalidated, but it's definitely taken on a new meaning, because if somebody would just continue to go to this link to lie about their credentials, then I would have a hard time really trusting anything that they're saying, even if it does have substance or if there is a point to back it up. So just be very careful about who you're choosing to go into, in mental health services with, even if it's life coaching, anything like that. Just be very mindful. People, if they are licensed, you can easily look that up. And just educate yourself on the type of help and the things that you need, and just be mindful of these social media people, because you never know what's true or not. So that's all I got to say. Good luck, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.